Welcome to Lumen, a podcast that sheds light on mental health, relationships, and what it means to be human. I'm Christopher Mooney, LCSW.
And I'm Kenyon Phillips, LMSW. Each episode, we unpack psychological patterns that affect our relationships. No jargon, no judgment.
Just thoughtful conversations to help you understand yourself and others a little more clearly. So today I want to talk about shame.
Shame should have already mastered everything.
That's a good way to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
That's like that perfectionism thing.
Yep.
But so we did a video on shame a while ago, not a podcast, but one of I think the first videos that we put out was all about like the toxicity of shame.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to talk about it today, and this idea that, you know, it's kind of determine the difference between shame and guilt, and then maybe some of the other things that happen as we're feeling shame.
Although I think we're only as sick as our secrets when it comes to shame. It's not a secret exactly. It's more like a judgment that we've made about ourselves, a verdict that we've made about ourselves. Probably we made it a long time ago and we carry it secretly.
Yeah.
And it's not so much about, I did something I regret. It's more like, I regret the kind of person I am.
Yeah. So that's an interesting, so just to start, like the difference between shame and guilt, actually, you're talking exactly about that. Shame is, I am a mistake, and guilt is, I made a mistake.
Exactly. It's differentiating action, something that I did,
right,
versus something that we are.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And shame is one of those things, I think, when I go back to like work in addiction and substance use issues, like that's the constant that I always hear about is this underlying pit of shame. This is something that we feel in deep within our core. It's sometimes people talk about like that hole, that dark place in their stomach. But it's really, I think, at the core, like that's where we experience shame.
There's somebody I love in recovery who describes shame as the feeling of being disqualified from connection with another human being.
Tell me a little bit more about that, like what the being disqualified.
We in past episodes we talk a lot about how we're humans are herd animals, we're pack animals.
Right.
We care very deeply about being part of a herd, and being persona non grata, being cast out, is profoundly painful. And I think with shame, shame brings a sense of, I'm not worthy. I'll never be worthy no matter what I do. So I am not going to connect with anybody. And the sad irony of it, and we can get into this more as we discuss it, is that that's really the antidote to shame. The antidote to shame is being seen by another human being without being judged.
Right.
To be seen in a loving, supportive, unconditional way. And yet shame prevents that from happening. If I feel ashamed, as my friend in recovery says, I feel disqualified. I feel like there's absolutely no way I can show who I am to another person without being severely judged, cast out of whatever tribe I'm trying to be a part of.
You don't meet the criteria to join the club.
Exactly.
And that club happens to be humanity.
Right.
And so always, that makes a lot of sense, right? This sitting with shame, or having this underlying feeling. And I think everybody has some level of something they feel shame about, something they're shameful about. And when we think back to just kind of that idea of something that there's things that we never feel comfortable sharing with another human being. By the way, if we shared those things with other human beings, they might be like, yeah, that's okay. Like I did that too. Or there might be actually some normalized, experience with it.
Absolutely.
But we internalize it in such a way that it becomes this toxic kind of cancerous feeling that I think contributes to that thing that you're talking about, being other, like that painful experience of not being allowed into the group, disqualifying ourselves from it already before we even get there. And then from there, it's the depression, the anxiety, and all of the other kind of like
alienation,
loneliness,
isolation. which just exacerbates shame.
Yeah.
The more alone we are with our shame, the sicker we are with those secrets.
Yeah. And so shame isn't something we're born with. This isn't some like natural, like kind of like experience that like, oh, well, I have, 20% shame when I was born. There's not a genetic marker for shame, at least that we know of. I'm sure someone might disagree. But, when we think about it, shame comes from a learned experience. And I think shame really comes from when we're younger, and this, like maybe this, when we're trying to express our needs and our feelings, and we're kind of met with punishment or disregard or ridicule or silence. So if we think back to like, our own childhoods or, someone else, like a little kid, every time we express something, and it could be anything, it could be happy, sad, it could be any feeling that we express, any interest. If we're shut down or disregarded or told that that's not right in any context consistently and over time, it starts to contribute to shame. Like feelings become dangerous. Expressing ourselves becomes dangerous. And if we think about, like you were talking before, about being heard and being present with people, when we express ourselves, if we can't express ourselves, if we can't allow others to experience us without being punished, then we're going to hold it inside and think that we're broken.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it also comes from, I think shame often comes from this being told at the young age you're talking about, that stage of development, being told that our feelings are wrong.
Yes.
That happens. Shame is also something, as you mentioned, it comes up a lot with substance use.
Yeah.
It comes up a ton in anybody who's been assaulted or abused, childhood sexual abuse. So many times a child's job is really to love. Right? Yeah. I mean, that's like the child's job. And those who perpetrate abuse, especially sexual abuse, any kind of abuse on children, they betray that and they distort it. And so the child is left with a feeling of like, well, wait a second. My feelings must be wrong. Here I am programmed essentially to just love and receive love, and I'm being abused. I'm being assaulted. This hurts. Sometimes, in the worst cases of shame that I've ever worked with or encountered with clients come from the clients who've been abused, and they're like, but it felt good when I was a kid. And the perpetrators will often, it's like they have a code. They'll use that against the victim, against the survivor. And so that deeply, deeply increases the sense of shame.
Right. There, and like you were saying, there's attention, there's, focus, there's all these things that kids might be craving. Right. And that becomes exploited.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the child is made to feel bad for wanting that kind of a connection. If it's a boy who's abused, who's molested, and his body responds to it, it makes the child feel unsafe in their body. It makes the person hate their body.
Sure. Which
also exacerbates a sense of shame.
Right. And so all of a sudden these feelings, like people start to look at it as these things are not safe to show.
Absolutely.
I can't show this feeling. I can't show this reaction.
Yeah.
Even if it's natural and physical, or if we just, like, whatever it is, it's, if I express this feeling, if I express this idea or this interest, this doesn't have to just be about feelings, right? This is about interests or things that we like.
It's about clothing. Even.
It could be about clothing, about sexual preference. Right. It could be about anything, like,
the kind of
music.
Food you eat.
Right. So it's suddenly this becomes this isn't safe to show. So it doesn't disappear. It's not like, well, I'm just going to set that away and I don't care about it anymore. It becomes this, I need to now push this underground and not share it. But it's still mine. But exactly. I'm going to keep it down there. But everything around it, like the bubble that's surrounding it, becomes very dark and toxic. And so anytime you get near it, it's suddenly you start to look at all the other maladaptive behaviors that come up around it.
Totally. It's brutal. Shame is it's smart. It's cunning. It it'll mask itself in a way. There's some great ways that it sort of shows up, even, going back to what we were talking about last week with people pleasing. That's one way that shame sort of disguises itself or tries to hide, tries to deal with itself.
Yeah. So what would be an example of how people pleasing is masked through, or shame is masked?
Shame is masked through people pleasing?
Yeah.
In the sense of like perfectionism. Hey, if I can be as accommodating as possible, then you're never going to point a finger at me and sort of like search or, interrogate me or find the thing that I'm trying to hide.
Yeah, you're not going to ask for more.
No. If I'm just as accommodating as I can be, then, it's also, in a way, you can look at it as like self-abandonment or self-erasure before anybody has a chance to disapprove of you.
Mm-hmm. Hiding.
It's definitely
it's
hiding.
all just hiding.
Yeah.
Right. Make yourself as small as possible so that nobody can see.
Absolutely. I have so many friends who were in the closet. They were, gay men, knew they were gay from the time they were children or teenagers, felt like they had to be frat boys literally in college and be like toxic males, toxic straight acting males because of this shame about their true sexuality.
That is so common amongst men. Right. That shame comes out as rage, as overachievement, in or total withdrawal, right? Instead of any visible vulnerability.
Right.
And exactly what you're talking, like I'm going to have to, jump into this persona or fit this role so that nobody sees the thing that's really underneath.
Totally.
And that is what we've talked about, how men already have an issue with sharing their feelings and sharing emotions and verbalizing it. And I would say lack a lot of the vocabulary around sharing those emotions. And coupled with any kind of shame about something you may be into. Maybe you like a certain kind of music that your friends are going to rag on you about, but that builds up over time, right? You're called certain, things because you like a certain lifestyle, or you just have an affinity for certain things.
Totally.
Or you have, just certain preferences that you're afraid that people are going to judge you or physically harm you because of it.
And in some cases, there is physical harm, of course, for people who don't conform. Growing up in the 80s, definitely that, if I let people know, I remember like showing up to school wearing Reeboks. They were like this was probably 84, 85, the Reeboks that were high tops. And I remember I was so excited to wear them to school. And the first thing I heard when I got to school was, "Why are you wearing girl shoes?" And guess what? I never wore those shoes to school.
Of course. No.
I didn't want to get ridiculed. I was already getting ridiculed for being overweight. And it was like, oh man. And then later on, thank God, when I started really loving Prince music and putting like Prince posters on my walls at boarding school, there were some people who came in and made comments. And at that point, thankfully, I was just embracing my identity and who I was. And I would just give them a Prince look. I'd raise an eyebrow or sneer the way Prince would, because he could definitely throw shade better than anybody.
Oh, totally. It's interesting because it's this idea of, we've talked about authenticity a little bit before, and having our insides match our outsides.
Totally.
And that's, so somewhere along the line, right, you got some confidence or something where it was like, you know what, screw it, I'm going to put Prince posters on my wall and I'm okay with it. Like there's a courage in that along the way.
Yeah.
But then you start to think about it, your insides begin to match the outsides. And I think this is for when we're experiencing a ton of shame, there's not that genuine, authentic balance.
No.
And I think that's one of the ways that we have to look at shame, is that when that balance is offset, when our insides don't match the outsides, that's when we start to experience more mental health issues and struggles and relationship issues and communication issues. So we're constantly, I almost said should. we have to, I started with it. We're constantly striving to balance that, the authentic, like inside, like how I feel about myself and what I know about myself and how I present that to the world.
Right.
It's the presentation. When I say insides match the outsides, I mean how we feel about ourselves and what goes on internally balances with how we present to the world, that we're not putting up a facade.
Absolutely.
And shame makes us put up a facade.
It does. And it's lonely behind that facade.
It is.
There's no chance of connection. And I have to say, unless you are insanely courageous and strong and have just this incredibly solid foundation of self-confidence and self-esteem, you're not going to get to that place where you can have your insides match your outsides unless somebody in your life is making it safe for you to show who you actually are.
Correct.
So many people find it, I know we mentioned people struggling with substance use, they find it in recovery. They're, after years and years and years of degradation and self-judgment and judgment from their families and judgment from everyone in their circle, they can go to a place where people identify with what they've gone through and they can kind of workshop being vulnerable.
Yes.
Without, and it's what we do as therapists. We hopefully create a welcoming environment.
That's the idea.
Where somebody can start to show their true colors without fear of reprisal, without fear of judgment, in a safe way, and normalizing that process. But I mean, again and again and again, that's what I see. Unless somebody has the opportunity to get in the sandbox and try showing who they are and not be shut down for it.
Yeah, there's this, it is difficult because I think when we experience shame, and for those listening, when you think about moments in your life when you've experienced shame, it's natural to withdraw and hide and become invisible. So you almost remove yourself from, when we talked about this at the start, you remove yourself from being able to be seen.
Right.
And so you almost need people in your life to actively be looking for you in order to start to undo that, or, allow yourself to be seen. But the shame, I think, is so toxic because it causes us to retreat and become so small. Yeah. That we won't allow ourselves to be seen. And once we do that for a while, we hit the point where, well, now we're just not seen. And then it starts to, it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of, I've become so small and out of fear and not allowing myself to be, and not wanting myself to be seen because it's dangerous, to now nobody sees me. Now I'm worthless. Yeah. Now I'm a mistake. Now I'm not worth having the relationship. Like you said before, it discredits us and from actually being allowed to participate.
Right.
But that becomes it feeds itself. And so once we pass a certain point, it just kind of becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy, this self-feeding kind of loop.
Yeah.
That we live in.
Absolutely.
And that's when we start doing those masking behaviors. You might see humor, like, or like a lot of humor, like all these things that we deflect compliments, accomplishments.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. You see that all the time. Try to pay a compliment to somebody who has shame. They will not accept it. No. Even if you just say like, oh, I really like that shirt. I got it on sale.
Yeah, exactly. It's just something old. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got it on sale. You have to kind of like, this.
You have to discount it. And it's interesting. There've been a few studies now on, and Bessel van der Kolk mentions it in The Body Keeps the Score, people who struggle with obesity. Many of them, not all of them, but many of them are actually trying to sort of, they're struggling with shame. And for a lot of women who are severely overweight, it's a choice they make to avoid having to deal with the shame of, in many cases, having been sexually assaulted. And in in many cases, they will lose weight and start to, have this experience of men looking at them, people looking at them, and they feel so unsafe that they need to hide again. So they gain all the weight back in order to appear invisible. That's one sort of permutation of shame that is terribly, I think, tragic because it promulgates this intense isolation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we want to talk about some of the ways that we deal with shame. We talked about like maybe how this looks, some of the ways that it comes out. What are some of the ways that we can start to deal with shame? You mentioned having safe places, having a person in your life that is safe, that where you can feel okay expressing yourself.
Who can normalize it for you. It was so important to me to have a really good friend who is kind of popular say, oh, I really like Prince too, when I was like 12.
Made it safe.
Yeah. It gave me permission. It normalized it. I could identify with somebody else. Somebody else was identifying with me. Oh, this person's cool.
You know what just struck me, Kenyon, was this idea of how sometimes that becomes maladaptive. Before we get into hey, let's look at like how to deal with this. I was just thinking of how the bar works. Like, you
interesting.
go to the bar, or or if you're around other people who are abusing substances. And I know we keep coming back to that, but there's other areas in life where I think there's examples, but this is kind of the easy one to look at, which is I feel this way about myself. I'm closed off. These other people feel this way about themselves, but there's that equalizer. There's the substance use is something that it kind of balances it out. And we've talked about this, I think.
We talked about this in the last episode.
Where there's that, it evens the playing field. And so if we're walking around with these negative feelings and this shame and these things that we don't want to show people, there's still this, it's not even a false sense of connection. There is a connection there over something, but it's harmful. And I think that's what we have to be really mindful of and careful of, is that when we're trying to connect with other people because we're so afraid and we've got all this shame or these negative feelings, that we're not seeking it out from maladaptive or harmful places. When I say maladaptive, I just mean harmful, like harmful behaviors, things that we talk about, like gambling, substance abuse, shopping addictions. Most of the things we think of as addictive behaviors.
Yeah, but I mean, I also worked with young men who identify as incel, and they're, which is this, it started online, an identity that's characterized by like extreme misogyny and anger towards women and propensity for violence and certain kinds of music, certain kinds of games. And it really adds up to a very toxic male identity. And these people are often super reclusive and finding each other online. And it reinforces a highly maladaptive, not only a maladaptive behavior, but like a maladaptive identity.
Yeah. And super toxic.
Yeah.
Right. And dangerous.
Right.
Because this is where there's been a lot of abusive behavior and violence coming out of that community.
Some of the like school shooters identify as,
I think of that as it happens so quickly. So when we think about how fast if we're pining for connection, just as human beings, right? So this is human nature, that we need to be connected. We need to be part of the herd. We need to be part of the group. Otherwise we don't survive.
Right.
And you're cast out. You feel separate. You feel like you're a mistake, right? You feel broken.
Right.
And suddenly you have somebody who just pays attention online. And this is all predatory behavior if we look at it online, right? Absolutely. Hey, let me tell me more about that. Like, come on, like, all the, when you think about like all this stuff about kids' safety online now, and the predators just posing as somebody else, catfishing people, like the examples are endless. And it really, I think if we look at that, comes from this, if somebody's feeling insecure and they're feeling shame, it's so much easier to exploit that. And there are a lot of people who are predatory in that way, and they can pick up on it and they can read that and they will exploit that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that it feels like a cliche, but it's used by perpetrators, people who molest children, remember, don't tell anybody, this is our secret.
Mm-hmm.
And if you tell somebody, something terrible is going to happen to your parents or something, right. You're going to be punished.
Yeah. Or I'm going to do something.
Or I'm going to do something.
Which they'll threaten as well, or just make it, but they will exploit that fear and that shame.
Absolutely. And you see that with domestic violence all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just children, it's adults too, who are living under these severe, sort of bonds of shame. How many women who are battered by their partners, they don't want to admit it. Oh, I ran into a wall. I fell down the stairs. And, meanwhile being told by their abuser, hey, if you tell anybody about this, if you go to the police, if you tell your parents, I am going to kill you.
Yeah. I think there's even more subtle signs to look for too, which is just nobody's going to believe you.
Mm-hmm.
If people, and this goes back to even childhood, when we were talking about like the roots of shame,
mm-hmm.
right? This idea of things aren't safe, or these things that I'm feeling aren't okay, which is right. Nobody's going to pay attention to you. Nobody's going to listen to that. So when you think about how often in these situations people are put down or made to feel insignificant,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's where shame just really, unfortunately, flourishes. It mm-hmm. just kind of grows in that environment.
And that's one of the ways in which silence can be violence, because shame flourishes in silence. It begets silence. And, I've said it already in this episode. I'll say it again. In recovery, we're only as sick as our secrets.
Right.
Shame shrinks when it's spoken.
Yes.
To name it, for me, hey, I love destigmatizing things. I have, things that I've gone through, experiences I've had that mm-hmm. that people have told me to feel ashamed about. Somebody like I have a profile on Psychology Today. I guess we all do, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm smiling in my photo, and I had somebody say like, you really need to replace that headshot with a professional therapist headshot. And I was like, actually, that's a professional shot. What's the problem with it? And they're like, well, you're smiling. And I have had multiple clients reach out to me from that profile, and I'll say, hey, just curious, why did you reach out to me? And they'll say, because you're smiling.
Yeah.
And it gave me hope.
And it's an authentic smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not.
It wasn't the
It wasn't the
the profile smile. The profile smile.
It wasn't the profile.
It
wasn't the Olin Mills smile.
But that's so telling about where that person was coming from, versus the other people who are looking also like, oh no, I want the person that has that, because there was a safety in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But we're told, don't smile, keep your head down, mm-hmm. don't wear clothes like Kenyon wears, hide your tattoos.
That's right. I was thinking about this with my kids recently, like talking about and things that embarrass them.
Yeah.
And they're young.
They're in that age where they're embarrassed of you, right?
Not fully. When I pull up to the school to drop my daughter off, she turns down the music and sinks down in her seat. And I'm like, I'm the coolest dad here. What is your deal? Like, like Tribe Called Quest, like blasting, or it'll just be like some like other metal. I'll go into school like blasting Rage Against the Machine. She's like, Dad, stop. I was like, what? These kids, they're blessed to have this experience right now.
Right?
But when I talk to them about embarrassment, other than me intentionally trying to like embarrass them, it's this idea of owning the embarrassing moment, owning the thing that you feel shame about, because when you name it, you can't feel like you're saying it's no secret. Mm-hmm. So, and I've tried to practice this over my life. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if I do something that really embarrasses myself or I feel really embarrassed or even shameful about something, I try to immediately call it out in that moment to the person, be like, and just kind of make light of it because it helps. But that's one way that I really try to reduce like the shame. I have enough shame that I just keep balled up down inside. I don't need to be adding more to the pile. It does a good enough job just kind of sitting there and moving around. So when I do something, I do try, if I recognize it, to say like, wow, that was really awkward. Or, oh, God, why did I say that? Like, it can just be a passing comment like that. At least if I put it out there, it gives the other person a chance to be like, yeah, that was crazy, or no, it's no problem at all. Like I can navigate the level of acceptance and the awkwardness. But if I feel comfortable navigating like an awkward moment, then I can throw that shame out there. But I have to name it first and be like, yeah, God, I felt really bad when I did that. Oh, I can't believe I said that.
I love that so much because it's modeling self-forgiveness. It's modeling, hey, it's okay to make mistakes. And shame says it's not okay to make mistakes. Shame says if you make a mistake, you are a mistake. And you'd better not mess up. There is no second place, all that, no second chances. Bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, I'm 50 years old. I've had so many second and third and fourth and fifth chances. And I will continue to have more chances. And, you know, I just love that you're able to hold yourself accountable.
I could try.
Try. But without punishing yourself, just to admit.
Yeah, it's hard. In all honesty, I will still punish myself about it.
For sure.
But it's much less painful and it doesn't stick as long.
Right.
Like, then it might switch back to guilt. Oh, I made a mistake. I think that's when we talk about that distinction again, guilt is I made a mistake versus shame, I am a mistake. There's a relation to them, and you can cross that line from one, and one does transform to the other, but you can move it back. Right. I think we have the ability, and that's where I think if we can call attention to the moment, and this is what's so important with teenagers, especially kids, like teach them that making a mistake is okay.
Yeah.
Just call it out. You don't have to hide. You don't have to run away. You know, I constantly tell my kids, come back here and talk about it. Come back here and talk about it. Don't run upstairs and go hide in your room. Don't hide under the table. Come back and talk about it.
Right.
It's okay. I did the same stupid things as a kid too.
Right.
Probably worse.
Absolutely.
Definitely
it gets normalized. Definitely worse. No, it gets normalized that way. And yeah, it's so important.
Normalization's really, that's key. You're bringing that up because that's also normalizing is understanding that, oh, you know what, Kenyon, you probably have shame too. And I have shame and you have some shame. Hey, so we both have this kind of, it's maybe about different things, but we all experience it as human beings. These are all things we feel bad about.
Totally.
We've all done something we feel bad about. That's okay. Where it's not just our secret, like, albatross to suffer with.
No. And that sense that shame gives us, which is that you're the only person in the world who has this. You are terminally unique, my friend.
Yeah.
No one sucks just as bad as you do, you know, in quite the same way. And it's, God, I mean, just the shame of like farting and trying to cover it up. I mean, that's so awkward. It's like, just own the fucking fart. There's two of us here. I know you smell it. But if I say, hey, you know what? I farted, Chris. Whoops.
Yeah.
I know you farted too. And it's to clarify, nobody's farting right now.
No, I just want to be very clear.
Yeah.
Because my wife is going to be like, that whole part of your podcast where you talked about farting.
But again, but sharing, breaking shame down, because shame does say, you know, you're the only person who's experienced this and you'd better hide in order to be barely acceptable. And thus shame self-perpetuates. Being able to talk about it. That's why I love therapy. I mean, hey, this is a place to counter shame, to let it out, show it to the light. It's like a vampire. It'll die in the light, in the sunlight.
That's true. It's hopefully a safe place right? And I know it's kind of cliche to say, oh, therapy is like creating this safe environment for people, but that really is, when I think about therapy and being a therapist in that process, it's not just the room, the safe room, or a lot of it has to do with that space. But, since we've gone to telehealth, that's a little different, But I think it's really about how the relationship is safe, and how can somebody just share something and not feel a sense of judgment, and like a mean judgment too. Like there can, some of that we've talked about, assessment versus judgment, just kind of like listening, but this idea of like, oh, I'm being judged and I'm being put down, or this person thinks less of me because I'm saying this.
Absolutely.
And that is what we're avoiding. We don't want that. We are trying to have a relationship with somebody where you can tell me about all the weird stuff that goes on in your life.
Yeah.
Dude, that's just you. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's part of you. It's part of what gives people character. And sometimes we do weird stuff.
Humans are very strange. It's so rewarding to have a client, and I just had this the other day, to have a client say, I've never told anybody any of this before, but this happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it makes me, it's deeply gratifying to me, not because something awful happened to a client,
Right.
but because that client is experiencing safety, and I can see the shame kind of like minimizing. And it's not like I don't aim to be anybody's confessor.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the only person the client can come to with their stuff. I want to model it so that client feels comfortable going out in the world and sharing these supposedly shameful things that aren't shameful with their loved ones, with their friends, with anyone they trust.
Yeah. So if people think of therapy as a microcosm or a testing ground for sandbox. The sandbox, you get to experiment with that and then take it out and try it. But the cool thing in therapy is that you get to identify the people that might be safe. So there's nothing wrong with tipping the scale. Put your finger on the scale and tip it in your favor a little bit to go out. Try those experiments first. Pick the safest person you can think of in your life to go and share something that you feel shame about. Don't go to the hardest person. Or I think about how many conversations I've had, not just with clients, but just with people in general. Like, yeah, I keep going back to this relationship or this person in my life or this parent or this ex or this partner, active partner. And I just keep asking for this thing and they're just not giving it. They're just not right. I'm like, why you keep going to a dry well?
Right.
Go to the person that's going to give that to you. You have a friend that hypes you up all the time. Doesn't matter. Go to them. Get some more hype.
Right.
Like, just eat it up. Try it. And then find the next person. And then find the next person. And I think that's a good exercise for people listening to just reflect on who in your life can you share something like that with? Is there somebody that is mostly safe that you can do that with, or that would give you some feedback? Maybe they're going to be bluntly honest with you, not brutally, but bluntly honest with you back and say, yeah, like, here's what I think about that, or here's how I feel about that. But, identify people that you have in your life that you can share some of these things with, because shame needs 3 things to survive. It needs secrecy, silence, and judgment. And so if we take any one of those things away, it's losing its power. It's losing its, ability to control our lives. So don't be silent.
Yeah.
Find some way to speak about it.
Absolutely. And once we do get in the habit, I mean, that's the thing, it can change. Those of us who sort of get locked into this tower with our shame, we think, this is it. I'm stuck here. It's never going to get better. I'm only going to become more ashamed. And the more we do talk about it and share and allow ourselves to be seen by other people, shame really does diminish.
Yeah, it's not permanent. Remember, it was a learned behavior early on. It was a learned experience early on. And that means we can unlearn it or learn to do something different. I don't think we unlearn it. It's still something we've experienced, but we can learn to do something different with it.
That's one of the things I love about just not only recovery however you choose to define recovery, but just the word itself. The idea of recovery is that we are reclaiming something we once had. So it gets back to what you're saying about like our origins are amazing. You know, we come into this world, some say we come in innocent, but we come in with like all these resources and all this potential. And then, you know, we're kicked around and we develop shame.
Yeah.
But the idea of recovery as recovering something we once had is really brings me a lot of hope. And I know it brings a lot of hope to my clients.
That's a beautiful thought. And just something to reflect on, reclaiming something we once had.
And shame is lame.
That's the takeaway. Hey man, shame's lame. It's the new DARE program. Yeah.
Oh,
I like it. Actually, that's what we're doing. We're going into schools. Shame is lame.
shame is lame, bro.
That seems like a natural place to stop this week. Thank you, Kenyon, for that wonderful insight. You said something so beautiful.
And then I shat all over it. I refuse to be ashamed for it.
That's right. No, I appreciate that about you. Perfect. Right.
Thanks for listening to Lumen. If today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to follow, review, and share Lumen with anyone you think would appreciate it.
We'll be back soon with another conversation designed to bring a little more light to the human condition. I'm Christopher Mooney, LCSW.
And I'm Kenyon Phillips, LMSW.
Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. Lumen is for educational and informational purposes only and is not a substitute for therapy, diagnosis, or treatment. If you're experiencing a mental health crisis, please contact local emergency services or a trusted mental health professional.